have never desired your good opinion.
People fear what they do not understand.
I have a headache, a badge, and a gun.
Power is yours.
Behave.
I was just trying to start a conversation.
And share the wonders I've seen.
Hi, and welcome back to The Wonders I've Seen, where there's no such thing as weird or normal. There's just different. I'm your host, Tanagra, and we are back after a 2-month break. I know I should have given y'all a heads up, but life happens. There was the flu, the holidays, family fun, and PAX South, which maybe I'll talk about, but maybe not, because PAX is my whole other thing. But now we're back, so let's get into it. And today we're going to be talking about Jason Momoa's DCEU film, Aquaman. That's right, I said Jason Momoa's Aquaman because ultimately that's what it is. DC is just the investor to bring this film to us. Let's just be real. His face has been plastered everywhere since they announced they were going to do Aquaman, and they realized that maybe he doesn't need to be a blonde, white, Aryan, white guy. Who knew there are people of color around water cultures? I did it. Which is also something that we're going to talk about. And one of the reasons that I decided to talk about this film is the POC representation that the film I feel was supposed to represent, but that I feel that it actually did. Two different levels, what they thought they were doing and then what I feel the film successfully did. So now, to start out first, I am not a Pacific Islander. I am Black Latin, Black American. So any way you slice that apple, I'm Black. So the idea of being caught between two cultures as somebody who's Black American, Black Latin is different than for people who I feel have, for lack of a better way to put it, they're of two ethnic backgrounds that are more disparate. In Latin culture, it's more we just ignore the Black people and act like they don't exist. Versus in other cultures where they really don't have any overlap. So I'll start there. I don't ever really, because of that, I never really identify myself as biracial. Because like I said, any way you slice my apple, I'm Black, whether you're looking at the Black Latin side or the Black American side. However, I don't feel that this idea of Aquaman being a vehicle for biracial identity in the superhero universe is where they really started out. At least that's not where the marketing came from. It was more of a, excuse me, y'all. The flu takes a while to get fully out of your system. It was more of a, we are going to make Aquaman cool and badass. And oh, look, there's Jason Momoa who likes the water, who happens to be Pacific Islander, and he's also a star, action star, and people overall like him, even though sometimes he can come off as problematic, which is a whole nother conversation because, we'll be touching on that too. So, Aquaman was just their chance to make Aquaman cool. They finally realized they needed some humor in the blasted DC movie universe. And they realized that this was a good entry point to be like, y'all, not everything needs to be gritty and realistic, quote unquote, and dark, although we're making superhero films. Like, we can have some humor and some fun. And I gotta say, whatever your thoughts on Momoa are, he definitely does embody that laid back, enjoy yourself, do your own thing sort of persona that DC definitely needed an injection of, just like they needed an injection of heart and feeling and emotions from Wonder Woman. So, Aquaman, in case you haven't seen it, it stars Jason Momoa, aka Khal Drogo, aka, if you don't know him from Stargate Universe, I guess you maybe first met him in Baywatch. Amber Heard as Mira, William Dafoe as Volko, Patrick Wilson as Jason Momoa's half-brother, King Orm, and also what I believe is supposed to be basically the embodiment of white supremacy because they made him look pale as fuck. And then Nicole Kidman as Atlanta, Dolph Lundgren, just being Dolph Lundgren, but with red hair. Tamura Morrison, who is basically the only other really Pacific Islander actor from overseas that's really popular here, unless you're going to count The Rock in that. Very, very small group of Hollywood recognized Pacific Islander actors. And then Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who you probably also saw in Hugh Jackman's The Greatest Showman. But he is the quote unquote villain. I think, they made a pretty good gray character there, but I'll say he's the antagonist he's one of them to Jason Momoa's Aquaman. And yeah, I know his name is Arthur Curry, but like he's Aquaman. Like, we're not even gonna do this back and forth. I don't call Superman Clark Kent when I talk about him. I don't call Batman Bruce Wayne. Like, F their secret identities. They're superheroes. He's Aquaman. All right, so when this film was first announced, I was very excited about the prospect of there being a film focused on Pacific Islanders and Pacific Island culture, mostly because they did choose Jason Momoa to be the star. Jason Momoa is very, very proud of his heritage, as he should be, as everybody should be. He's constantly talking about it. He does a lot of activist work celebrating not only the native cultures of Hawaii and other Pacific islands in that area, but also just of the native cultures on stateside. He was very outspoken about the DAPL. He and his family were outspoken about it, even though he's like, I'm a superstar, because at this point he is, has been for a while in all actuality. He is still very political about that and his recognition of being a POC and that he has a platform. And for that, I heart him. I wish that more POC in Hollywood not only could do it, I think, because I do think a lot of times what it comes down to the ability to do it and still maintain your career. And he has been able to do that. And I think it's also just because he has a general appeal. And truth be told, there isn't actually another actor in Hollywood who could replace him. So if you want a Jason Momoa look, you literally have to go to Jason Momoa. He doesn't have a backup yet. They haven't found a successful replacement or copy like the other ridiculous number of like white male actors that Hollywood has, and they can just slip them out a dime a dozen. No names need to be said. So anywho, I was excited to have like a proud POC, politically active and aware person in this role and embodying Aquaman. At the same time, however, Jason Momoa can be problematic. He's a little bit heavy on the jokey misogynist stuff. He ran into some issues talking about the rape scene in Game of Thrones, which Game of Thrones is a whole nother thing we also could talk about, but I probably won't because I'm not going to waste my breath when you can just Google misogyny Game of Thrones or racism Game of Thrones, and there are so many articles to enlighten you if you are not aware. So he's come back. He's apologized about the comments that he said about certain things that he's worn, recognizing that they are problematic. He very much is very bro-y, like but like not in the Silicon Valley tech bro sort of way, in that like whatever that thing the Jersey Shore people do, tan laundry, gym tan laundry, I believe that's it, the GTL. He's very sort of that, except imagine it with more water activity and also political activism. So yeah, not necessarily my type of person, but once again, I appreciate him being aware and knowing that the power that his celebrity allows him to bring to certain issues. So that is the Aquaman that we're looking for, and that's the person that they choose. And I will be honest, for me, it automatically set a certain expectation for this film. Let me take a moment to say, if you're hearing like a high whine or hot air being blown, we call that heat in New York. So you're getting a true New York experience. Just ignore it. I'll talk louder. So anyway, when I knew who they were casting in this role, the Jason Momoa, I was very excited, and it set a higher bar for what I thought this film would be as far as representation of minorities, of both on screen and behind the screen, but specifically for Pacific Islanders, even if not necessarily for Native Americans, but for Pacific Island culture in general, which is something that I don't feel is ever really highlighted outside of like, ooh, there's a mystical New Zealand over there and Taika Waititi, which excellent icon of any culture, but nevertheless, there is more to New Zealand than him and The Hobbit. So I was like, this would be awesome, right? This is a total power move. Like, all right, DC, you're trying, you're getting somebody who's outspoken, like he's gonna bring all his politics into this film. Yeah. And I thought it would be like a Pacific Islander Black Panther. I think that's what I wanted it to be. And when the film was first announced and he was announced as the lead, I feel like a lot of Asian Twitter, and there is an Asian Twitter just like there's a Black Twitter if you don't know. But if you don't know, you just don't know. Was sort of echoing those sentiments. Like, this is DC making a statement. They're moving in the right direction. They're trying to diversify. Because DC Comics have always been diverse, and for some reason they have failed to get that shit. Not for some reason, like white men in power have failed to make that visible in their films. Like, it's always been like, and then Batman. And then Batman does this, and then Batman does that. And they have an entire roster of really cool-ass people, and it's always been Batman. Entire roster of non-white, non-hetero, non-male characters, and DC is always focused on Batman when it comes to their film universe. TV universe is totally different, very similar problem, but different standards for television. So when they're like, we're going to make our next big thing, Aquaman, and he's going to be a person of color, and we chose like the very politically outspoken Jason Momoa, I was like, fuck yeah. Asian Twitter was like, fuck yeah. Like, everybody was like, all the POCs in the entertainment world were like, fuck yeah. All right, this is what we're getting. I'm ready for this film. And then I go watch it, and I can count the people of color on one hand. Like, literally. There's Tamura. There's Jason. There's Yaya, which, like, a person of color being a villain or a mercenary is not really a new thing. I might have seen an extra. I don't know. But yeah, basically that's it. And this film was touted as, like, this... Like, you know, and I'm not overlooking the director, who's also a person of color, but like, it was touted as this sort of like Pacific Islander inspired Aquaman who's in touch with his culture, and you don't actually get that. Even when Aquaman is a baby and he's hearing the stories of his culture, it's actually Nicole Kidman's character, Atlanta, telling him the culture and the stories of Atlantis. Like, you never hear his father, like, you never hear Tamura sitting down and being like, and then this is what the Maori people did. Or, I mean, like, they don't really say which Pacific Islander he's supposed to come from. So it's nothing like that, you know. And then the original Hawaiian language was so-and-so. Like, you don't get that at all. Like, and I understand that he is in this... I understand that he is of both worlds, that he is both of the land and of the sea. But they also made him of a very specific land culture, and it's something that doesn't actually carry over into the film. Like, even when they show him in school, he's surrounded by a bunch of white kids. And once again, not saying that there aren't a bunch of white kids down and choose wherever there are native cultures. But it's, for a film that's supposed to be priding itself on that, they make what's different about him. They focus so much on the Atlantis culture that you never really get a sense of who he is as a human POC. And I feel like that was very much overlooked. And I think that if they would have had more POC working on the film, that wouldn't have been an issue. And once again, not to say that Black Panther got like everything right, but what they did get right was that representation of what it means to be Black, to be Afro descent, and Afro descent using that in the terms of somebody who is either African or who is descendant from Africa. So that could be Black British, Black Caribbean, Black American, Black Asian, like that sense of this is what it means to be a descendant from this continent, from these cultures, that Pan-African feeling. And I felt that was overlooked in this, that there could have been a Pan-Pacific Islander feel that we just didn't get. And I'm not sure if that's because the directors and the writers were not Pacific Islander, or simply that DC thought that they were making a stronger statement by having a character who, like, by trying to focus basically on the simile of yes, sure, he's biracial, but he's really by species. Like, but you don't need to make a freaking like Selmy or allegory or any other or any other sort of representation when you literally have somebody who was actually of two different races. Like you could focus on that. You don't need to rely on, and then the part of him that's Atlantean is similar to being like half what, like half, I don't know, choose any minority. Like no, like you have him right there. You literally have a culture that's built into the character and you fail to capitalize on it. Like you could have made Atlantis any culture that you wanted to, and instead you made it like really really fucking white, like really white. Like I was watching the fight scenes and they're in a freaking stadium, and apparently like all the people of Atlanta are like of Atlantis are supposed to be in the stadium watching them fight for the crown, and it's the person of color against his Aryan looking brother. And as they're doing the close-ups of the crowd, even I'm looking for the obvious POC. Like that's what I was doing because that's what this film was presented to me as. Like, oh, this is going to be a film that raises that POC to a certain level in the DC EU, and it wasn't. Like, I don't need another story that focuses on what the white people are doing wrong. I want a story that praises what the POC have and are bringing to the table. And I think this was, no, excuse me, I misspoke. I know that this was a missed opportunity to bring that level of depth and make a statement that DC not only recognizes that, they recognize that Aquaman is of two worlds, but also that even as a human, he is caught in between being a person of color and what that might feel like. And maybe that also has to do with some of his feelings of otherness, that he doesn't fit on whether he's on land or in the water, but he makes the world work for him. Like he makes it his, which I think is something that all POC feel to a certain level, right? Like the fact that his mom disappears when he's like 5 or something. So he spends his entire life being raised by his Pacific Islander father, but that never comes up in the film. Like they're never speaking another language. And once again, it could have been Pan-Pacific Islander, but you never see that. Like Jason Momoa loves to go around doing hakas, although he's Hawaiian, not New Zealand, but I'll leave that to the New Zealand. There's in Hawaiians to talk that out. Like that never comes up, although he does it. He did it at the beginning of, he did a haka, and it was a haka, not a ha'a as they do in Hawaii. He did a haka at the beginning of the Aquaman premiere on the red carpet, but yet he didn't push for that to be in the film. And it's such a missed opportunity of what it could have been to educate the world about this rich culture that, in all honesty, in some places is dying out. Like the Maori people have been very good about trying to preserve their culture, but that has been an active push. But you're not getting that in places like Hawaii. Like the native cultures are still having a lot of trouble with teaching the language to newer generations, people respecting them for starters. Like that's a whole political, social talk that I'm not going to get into now. But I mean, we're all aware of the fact that indigenous groups and cultures aren't just given the respect that they deserve, really, in most locations in the world. And New Zealand is one of the few where it's not only like surviving, but thriving and becoming part of the everyday culture. And I felt that Jason Momoa, being Jason Momoa, had sort of a more responsibility to call out DC for not doing better. Like, I think he read it and he was like, oh yeah, man, he's part of two different worlds. That's my Momoa impression. Yeah, man, he's part of two different worlds. But he's like beer guzzling, he doesn't care because he's been through a lot. He feels that Atlantis killed his mom, And I get it, right? Like, you got the Batman complex. Your parent died, you're upset about it, therefore you don't want to help the people. But at the same time, you're also not like you're not really doing anything to help people on the land. And then it starts out with you helping some soldiers, which, like, I got a whole nother thing. Like, what are you saying with that? Like, as somebody who's also part native, like, you're helping out the soldiers, but we already know the history of, like, the military. And when it comes to any sort of culture that was there before them. Like, it was just so much that could have been done, and it could have been done so much better. And I wanted that for this film. I wanted, like, Pacific Islanders to look at this film and be like, yeah, that represents me. And maybe DC wanted to do something wider, right? I've read a lot of, and I won't call any specific websites or writers out, but I've read a lot of reviews about this film that talk about how they felt it was a really good show of diversity and what it means to be of two worlds, and that's what it feels like to be biracial specifically. And maybe that's what I'm missing because I don't identify with that. Maybe that's why I think that they could have done better. But I also feel that if the film is going to even put itself out there as being a champion of what it means to be biracial and of diversity, then at least needs to portray the actual cultures that it's supposed to be representing. So maybe it's just me. I don't think Aquaman was a bad film, but I think it could have been better. And I don't think that there's going to be another chance for them really to go back and fix this. My hope is that in the future, when they're showing Atlantis, they will show POC being actually part of Atlantis, because, like, y'all separated from humanity, but, like, you don't have diversity at all. Like, you're like, really? I don't. I'm just saying, like, they could have done better, and blah blah blah. You know, there were people who've been like, oh, they believe Atlantis was located in Greece. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Don't get to me, and don't act like there weren't, like, you know, people of color from all over the world traveling during those time periods, because history and archaeology have taught us otherwise. So we're trying to be historically accurate about Aquaman. Also, really, I'm giving you all the fucking side eye right now. Now, I want DC to do better. Even if they don't want to get political, they can at least, like, color it up a bit with their extras. So I'm seeing at least more than, you know, I don't know, I'm going to say 5 POC when they're doing crowd close-ups. Let me know what you thought of Aquaman. Do you think that it should have done better in representing Pacific Islander culture? Do you think that the idea of using Atlantis and specifically, and this was an interesting choice, Aquaman's brother, Patrick Wilson, King Orm, as the symbol for white supremacy? Do you think that analogy was well done? Because I got it, especially with him using the outdated racist term half-breed. Like, I got what he was supposed to be representing, but no, like, that could have also been done a lot better. Like, he didn't need to go on that. Like, he didn't need to represent that. You know, he could have just been the hateful half-brother who was like, I'm pissed because of you, our mom died. Like, they could have just stuck it with that. They didn't need that racial element or to even try and discuss that. But they did, and they did it poorly. So I still thought the film was fun, but just on the issue of race and representation, I thought that they they failed spectacularly. I was happy that they had Tamora Morrison in it. I did think that was an important casting. I do think that Jason Momoa was an important casting, but it did feel sort of like tokenism, especially because there was nobody behind the scenes who was also Pacific Islander. And once again, I don't know who that relies on. You know, Ryan Coogler was really big on getting people who were Black, once again, are Afro, from, like, all over the world and representing that, whether it was the production designer, Hannah Beachler, the costume designer, Ruthie Carter, even his producer, Nate Moore. Like, he focused on doing that and bringing that sense of Pan-Africanism to the movie, and I think to Black Panther, and I really wanted that out of Aquaman, and they didn't do it. But maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think it's more important that they focused on the white supremacist aspect. I don't know. Anyway, I've been going on for a while. I got a lot of thoughts and feelings about this film because it was fun, but I don't think fun means that it also can't tackle serious issues. So let me know what you think. Did you like Aquaman? Did you enjoy it? Send me a Twitter at Tanagra, GGNOC. That's Tanagra, TANAGRA, GGNOC. Or drop me an email, same address, at gmail.com. Don't forget, you can always join the discussion, and then you can find us on Anchor, RadioPublic, iTunes, Overcast, and YouTube if you like to listen to podcasts and look at some very pretty pictures. I'll give you a heads up, this one's just going to be a lot of shirtless Momoa, because he did look good. He did look good. All right, talk to you later. Thanks for joining. Make choices, and don't roll it up.